You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, my guest is going to take us on a journey of talking a little bit more about purpose-filled living, whether it's in the work you do or the extracurricular effort you might have. I like to think in the terms of if you're going to be a leader, it's not just work. We need leaders in our communities and in our homes. And so I think this will be a good one for you. My guest's name is Eric Newman. He's out of Virginia. Eric, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so you have a very compelling backstory, and I often ask my guests to share some of their personal journey that got them to where they are now, and please share that with us.
Sure. Entrepreneur since birth. I was the kid selling candy in fourth grade, getting in trouble. I had one backpack for candy, realized you could go to a box store and buy blow pops for a price, and then realized you could sell it for a lot more money to kids. And so I was in fourth grade doing that. But so entrepreneur. So for me, my journey really begins when I was 3 years old. I was diagnosed with a very rare form of liver cancer. Perfectly healthy young man, put me up on the doctor table. They found the tumor size of a golf ball. Ended up taking close to 3/4 of my liver out, and they gave my parents a very slim chance for me to be talking with you today. So with that, received chemotherapy, all of that stuff. And then fast forward a little bit, I had two first cousins. I was second child, 3 years old when I was diagnosed, and they were second child, 3 years old when they were diagnosed. Both of them had cancer. We lost one, Nicole, at the age of 5. And then fast forward a little bit more, we lost Shannon, which was the second cousin diagnosed at the age of 17. She relapsed. So there was 3 of us. There was 2 of us. And then there was just this guy, entrepreneur. So I made a commitment the day we laid Shannon to rest that I was going to work hard, party hard, and play hard. And I was really good at all 3 of them, but probably better at the partying side. But I've owned probably about 10 or 11 businesses, started a lawn care company, sold that, started a construction company, sold that, got into real estate, home building. And in 2008, I ended up losing everything in the real estate construction market. So I did what any responsible businessman would do. I had $1,500 left to my name. So I went to Costa Rica and figured out what this one and only life was about. And so I wrote down a word, hope, while I was there. And so in all of that, long story short, I took my construction knowledge from the pain from that, the construction pain, and then I took my cancer knowledge and the pain from that. And I truly believe that I've pointed it to a purpose, which I started a nonprofit organization called Rock Solid Foundation about 16 years ago. We build hope for kids fighting cancer. How do we do that? We build play sets in their backyards. And then we also provide a ready bag for the families. So again, taking that same entrepreneurial mind, started a nonprofit, had no idea how to do it. And here I am 16 years later, taking the same principles of business, just putting it towards a purpose for me.
Yeah. What a story. Amazing. And I don't even know the right word. Congratulations sounds terrible.
Oh, yeah, I hear you, man. Thank you.
But kudos for the repurposing and taking that life lesson and really finding a meaningful purpose. And, you know, I've had other leaders of nonprofits on the show, and if there's any one common theme is a nonprofit is a business.
1,000%.
And the better ones are run like good businesses. You have to be fiscally disciplined. You have to have plans and forecasts, and you've got to really focus on your sources and uses of money. And so to say you're running a nonprofit, there is no disconnect in my mind of talking about applying good business principles to make it thrive.
Right. So I like to say that we run Rock Solid like a Fortune 500 company. The only difference are my shareholders. So who are my shareholders? So as a CEO, as a leader, my job is to produce as much as I can for the shareholders. And my shareholders are kids fighting cancer. And so we're going to market like the best of them. We're going to financially, like what you said, be responsible. We're going to hire, we're going to fire, we're going to do everything that a Fortune 500 company does. And then we're going to point all of those profits, all of the revenue, all of the ideas back to my shareholders, which are kids fighting cancer.
Love it. Great, great story. And so how big is the organization now, headcount wise?
Yeah, so headcount wise, we have about 30 people that work for the organization. Started completely broke. We sold Krispy Kreme donuts for our first fundraiser. That was the only fundraising experience that I had for T-ball back in the day. I do tell you, Doug, like if you ate a donut that day, you got it from me. Like we cornered that market, but took the same principles, like buy it for $7, sell it for $12, right? So we sold donuts and then we built one play set. And then we did a cornhole tournament and built another play set. Then we did a beer pong tournament, did another play set. So took the same principles, and then we just started getting better at the customer experience for the families. And then also we decided to do a model a little bit different, to where in 2008, companies had been laying people off. We're like, all right, what are they going to look to do in the future? Well, they're going to want to rebuild their culture. So we decided to structure our playset builds as team building exercises for corporate America. And that's what we've done. So let's say, Doug, your company wants to come out and build a playset for team building, employee engagement, recruitment, retention, whatever those famous R words are. And so the better we can love and serve you, the better you love and serve them, with your kids fighting cancer. So we started by selling donuts. I've partnered with Amazon, Microsoft, Disney, the LA Dodgers, some fairly large companies that bring us to do team building, but in the same return, get to put a smile on a child's face fighting pediatric cancer. So we started with nothing, about 30 people, and we're right around about 5 million in revenue a year.
Nice. Well, so these play sets, is it a design you and your team came up with, and then you manufacture the parts and the components, or you buy kits somewhere else?
Yeah, so we partner with one of our partners out of Pittsburgh, Kansas, Backyard Discovery, and they kit it for us, and then they drop ship it anywhere in the U.S. My team, we're all over, so we love and serve the families through the local children's hospitals. We're partnered with over 185 hospitals throughout the country, and so they identify the families. We don't identify the families, the hospitals do, and then we identify the sponsors and the partners in that community, and it's all kitted. And so you show up, and then we just had NASCAR do a build with us. They beat the record. It's like an hour and 2 minutes. It was super intense. Like we just took our hands off, like, all right, y'all do your thing. I mean, it's what you think, Doug, like, zzz, zzz, zzz. So most builds take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do it. It used to take us 17 hours to do a build, but then we just focused on simplicity, because people have to understand it and they have to be able to get behind it. And me as an entrepreneur, I love taking complex problems and fixing them. That's what entrepreneurs do, right? See problem, fix problem, see problem, fix problem. And that's what we've been doing ever since. So it's a pretty neat process.
I love it. What a great idea. And congratulations on all that. So your organization is 16 years old now?
16 years old. It's hard to believe. So it's if you look at it from like a driving standpoint, right? Or a child, right? Entrepreneurs give birth to an idea, leaders give birth to an idea, and then watching it grow. So my kid's starting to drive, right? So give them a little bit more freedom, especially with the staff and the team, trust the process, give them a little bit more freedom. And the thing is, like, as this continues to grow, like they come to you when they need gas money or when they make a really big mistake, right? And so that's the part of where I'm having to grow as a leader is trust the team, trust the process, because you can have control or you can have growth, but you can't really have both. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to trust my teenager driving out there without me like in the car driving it. So
I love it. Well, and what you're touching on there is the very natural growth and evolution of a small business. And I know there are a lot of different models that try to address this. I tend to gravitate to a simple 4-part model that, you talk about startup, grow up, scale up, and then enterprise.
mm-hmm.
And at each of those pivots, some material things have to happen, particularly in this 6 inches of real estate for the owner. that six
Yes.
inches in between your ears and the way you're thinking and the mindset you have about the business, that has to evolve with it as well. So
Super challenging. Very,
talk to us
very
about
hard.
your journey in that regard. Owner, founder, you're the idea guy, you got it started. And what was your first real pivot point as you watched the thing develop?
Well, I think for us, simplicity, right? So I remember we were doing about 4 builds a year. And then that's when we had to take the leap of faith, run by a board of directors. My board's phenomenal. I do have a position on the board, but never been chairman of the board. So I do have a boss. Yes, I can get fired from something I created. So that at the beginning of reality of like when this thing started, we always started with the end in sight. And I think for me and what I've seen, a lot of people don't start with the end in sight. And so with a for-profit, it's like start business, sell business, right? Or sell to Google if you're a tech company. But for us, it's been an evolution of we've underlined every child. And every child, we've underlined it 3 times. And every child is 400,000 kids throughout the globe. And so keeping that in at every meeting that we talk about, every strategic planning, we have that very much so in front of us is every child. So I realized at a very fast pace when we were doing about 25 a year that I couldn't be everywhere and everyone. I couldn't be everyone to everyone, right? And so we took the leap of faith by hiring one person. I didn't have enough in the bank account to do so, but I knew if I could free up some of what I was excellent at, and really I would love to tell you this huge algorithm of what we did. We took a whiteboard, wrote down what I was really good at, and then all the stuff that I was really bad at. And instead of me trying to become an expert at what my brain didn't function that way. We're like, all right, this is what we have to do next. And then we just, again, dumbing it down, focus on simplicity, right? Focus on the one. But we went from 25 builds a year to then about 75 just by doing that split.
Wow.
And then we realized, okay, some of the other stuff that I could manage, so my whole theme of leadership is I become less, they become more. So who is they? At every stage of this, we identified the who just alongside of the how. And if you can do that simultaneously, that's helped. And man, it's been an evolution. We're going through a big transition now. I'm looking for a COO, someone to like run the entire organization for me to be able to so you say vision, dealing with the board, large partnerships. And I'm doing a lot of public speaking and stuff like that. So we're looking for a COO now where I have to continue to take my hands off the wheel, trust the team, and trust the process.
Yeah. Well, everything you just said is classic evolution of the founder mindset. And one of my guests a few months ago introduced us to the concept of founder-itis.
Oh yeah, that's a real thing.
And it is, and helping founders get out of the way. And I didn't have a catchy word for it, but I've talked about it a lot because I reflect on my days in banking, watching business owners come to us with this little nugget of an idea saying, I think this can be a business. And then we would take them through those growth stages, but inevitably sometimes even as early as that first pivot point, you leave startup and go to grow up. Even then, founder-itis can get in the way of progress and change. Right. And sometimes you might go as far as to call it ego. I don't want to let it go. It's my baby.
Right.
But it manifests in a lot of other ways too. And inevitably, and I was sad about this, and when I first started watching it, I had no idea what was going on, but I got frustrated by it. I thought, well, here's these people, they've got great ideas, great businesses, and at some point, I originally named it the paradox of success. Success is the very thing you're striving for, but you get enough success, it'll implode the business.
Yes.
If the owner is struggling from founder-itis and not willing to make the pivots.
Yeah, it's I think founder syndrome, founder-itis. I've read a bunch of books on this and I've studied it. So again, transition, right? So why did one business not make it to the next generation? And so I think a lot of it for me, even talking to you, there's pride. I know I can do it better. right? I know that no one can, in my mind, but in reality, like I have to set that ego aside. And it boils back down to Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? And I try to ask that 5 times before I either delegate or hang on to something. Of like, okay, why am I doing this? Then you get, because I'm not approaching the symptom, I'm actually getting to the problem. And so I think just examining the heart of the founder, but you said it earlier, like the 6 inches in between the brain. I think one of the most dangerous things for any founder is the distance between the head and the heart too. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in between there that this has to do. My executive team is phenomenal. We work hard for it. We wrestle to the ground, but we hug on the way back up, right? So my board of directors is phenomenal. And it truly is. You hear it all the time. You've been in leadership. Like, it's the team around you. It's the team around you. And the team around you really helps. Like when you're leading with a limp or you're leading at a capacity, they'll tell you if you have the right people around you.
Right. And that is, a powerful idea. And I've told this story before. I had a guest last year who was a partner in a restaurant chain in California, had two other partners, and the 3 of them had done a very nice job of building it up to a good sized business. But among the 3 of them, they had never really divvied up who was CEO, who was president, who was COO. They were a 3-headed monster that got things done. And I mean that in a good way. But they did get to a point in the journey. They said, I think as he described it, they had maybe 16 locations and it was starting to feel too big. And one of them at a meeting one day said, I think we need to hire a CEO. And the other 2 in almost synchronized lockstep said, we agree and we don't want to be it. We don't want to, we each have our own domain that we have helped contribute. And it was a wonderful synergy of the 3 of them. But they had the collective emotional intelligence and wisdom to say, we're big enough, we need a CEO. We can keep doing what we're doing, but we need a guy that's going to really focus on the day-to-day and get us to the next level. And so they went to the market and they said, well, what if we became a $100 million company?
Right.
Let's hire a $100 million CEO today.
Yes. It's easy for people to catch the vision where you are, but you need someone to catch where you're going. Is in that position. That's great.
Yeah. And that's what they did. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. They got to a place in time, much more growth, and they got an offer to sell the whole thing for $100 million. And
Let's go.
Yeah. How much is enough? That's enough.
Yeah. I think that's a good day. That's a very good day.
We're good.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
But again, I think that is so important. So let's talk a little bit about, as you lead this team you've got, what are some of the things you guys try to do as a team to keep it together, keep it on course, keep it tracking the way you want it to go?
Sure. We, I believe it was in 2016, I read the book Rocket Fuel, and then I read the book Traction. So we implemented EOS about 6 or months longer than that, 9 years ago. So those 2 books, the Rocket Fuel, made me realize that I wasn't crazy. Sometimes as founders, you feel crazy. So, which you are. Cheers to the crazy ones that think they can change the world, right? I think Steve Jobs or Apple said that. So we implemented Traction. And so every person in this organization has a number. They have a scorecard, KPI, rocks, whatever you want to call it. And then all of that rolls up to my private island scorecard. So where if I have internet for 5 minutes a day, I click on and I can see how the organization is performing. And then from that, if I see some indicators that it's not hitting, then I know exactly who to go to, who owns it. And then from there, work backwards from there. So we implemented Traction. We have executive leadership meetings once a week. It's not an option to attend. And I'm not surrounded with a bunch of yes men around me. I'm an idea guy. 999 of them are probably bad, but that one, they help push the things forward. And I have people around me that I respect and honor. And when they tell me no, there's very good reason behind it. So we implemented Traction. The leadership team is phenomenal. And then we point everything back to the mission, the why. Our values is one way that we've navigated the pandemic. Our values are how we've navigated the ups and downs with the tariffs and everything like that. So traction, the team, knowing your values, understanding your values, and then leading from your values, because your values are like a walking stick, right? So you don't need a walking stick when things are flat. You need it when you're climbing. Leaning on the values, and I mean, I can keep on and on and on, but those would be, I would say, the top indicators that help us keep it all together. And that's what I focus on, making sure we're abiding to the values. We're running a traction-based organization, and the team is strong. May not be all happy with each other, but we're moving the mission forward.
Yeah. So I'm hearing interwoven in all that is the idea that a lot of work has been done to build the culture that serves the mission.
Yes.
And that's a topic. So when I throw out the word culture, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So culture for us is so we've boiled it down, because that's a hard one to, you can tell, like in the fish tank, and I've heard this analogy before. If culture is good, all the fishes are swimming around and no one really realizes if the culture is good. But if the culture is bad, the fish can't breathe. And so for us, what it means is no matter what, no matter where. And so we've boiled it down to that. So me as CEO, if I need to hop on a plane and go build a place set, no matter what, no matter where. And so for me, culture isn't anything, it's everything. You have to protect culture at all costs. Now, when things are going good, it's fine. But when things are going hard, if you got to make some cuts and you got to do a lot of those things, how do you continue a culture? Is I lean on the values nonstop. So during the pandemic, we lost a couple $100,000 in a matter of short hours. That's a lot of money to us. And I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know what to do. So I called an all team meeting and we just went over our values. So for me, what does that mean? No matter what, no matter where, and values.
You mentioned the pandemic, and clearly for a lot of small businesses, the lockdown that was the pandemic, just for lack of better discussion, I'll call it March of 2020, when everybody, all the mandates started coming, federal and local and all that. I have heard dozens and dozens of stories since then of entrepreneurs doing exactly what you did. Just pull the team together and say, here's where we are, here's what we've got. Let's talk about what we need to do. And there was a company here locally. They were in the business of making bath soaps, fragrant bath soaps. I mean, this was a for-profit business, and they were doing quite well. But the pandemic hit, and their demand went to zero. That was a luxury item. People were scrambling to wonder what they could do, and the owner did the math in her own mind and said, I got to let more than half my people go. I can't sustain this payroll. And it tore her apart, but she decided to bring it to the team and just kind of laid it out there and said, I'm not going to make any quick, immediate decisions. I am going to make some decisions. I need to make some decisions, but it doesn't have to be this minute. Here's the facts. Here's the deal. What do you think? Go sleep on it for a couple of days and let's get back together again. Well, when they came back together, much to her surprise, the team among themselves, I don't know how they did it, and she doesn't know to this day how they did it, but they came back with a proposal. They said, we'll all take cuts. Here's the cut I can take. Here's the cut she'll take, him, and so on and so on. And it equated to that 50% reduction she needed, but nobody was gone.
Right.
And then one of them said, we've got all the materials. Let's pivot our production. Let's make hand sanitizer.
Mm-hmm.
So they started making hand sanitizer in bulk, and they were able to get into a bunch of the local grocery store chains. And, if you'll remember, 60 days after the pandemic, if you did get into a store, they had these giant tubs of a hand sanitizer.
Right.
They were everywhere, giant dispensers. Well, that's what this lady was doing locally.
Yep.
And the demand went through the roof, and she quadrupled her business
Yep.
in less than 6 months, doing nothing but high grade hand sanitizer.
Well, I think that's the significance. So ours is similar to that in the pandemic. So I just told you earlier, like we do corporate team building, right? The model was growing, but I was limited by like 150 to 200 a year. That's all from the manpower to the growth to the expense, what the market would sustain for the price of what we were trying to do. And in that, March 13th, 2020, so you're spot on with your deadline. I think that's the day the NBA shut down. The next day, I come on, I say, hey, listen, I don't know what's going to happen with this. We lost XYZ. I'm not going to make any rational decisions. But what I want to talk about is our values. So the first value is marry the mission, not the model. Marry the mission, not the model. And so what we did is we wrote down a statement that pediatric cancer wasn't pausing for this pandemic, and neither were we. And so we were like, okay, I did something similar, like go back to your teams. And then we came back on throughout the day. And so what we decided to do, we created Rock Solid On Demand, to where we could still ship the play sets. And then we recorded videos on how to train the families to build the play sets. And then we had their quarantine 10, like the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents that were still with them. And so we went from 150 projects a year to 750 that year. And then we had people purchasing, sponsoring, if you will, sponsoring that play set for the child. So then it built our culture, it built the stamina. And how did we do that? We went back to our values, but now guess what? Like that program is still active, and that's flourishing throughout the country, because now we're teaching people how to do the Rock Solid way, the Rock Solid experience in video. But then we're also back to the corporate team building exercise. So it just exploded throughout. And it's how did we do that? Literally from our first value, marry the mission, not the model. And from there, man, we've been testing and pivoting ever since.
Yeah, I love it. Great story. And, and all of that triggered the age-old phrase that says, necessity is the mother of invention.
Correct. Yep.
And a similar story, there was a Chinese restaurant here locally that, with the pandemic, they had to shut down. And they asked themselves, what can we really do? And they decided, well, we've got this giant kitchen. What can we do with that? So I'm down in Texas and on the Texas Gulf Coast, and a lot of people down here are consumers of crawfish. So they started boiling crawfish and selling them by the pound. Order online, pick up at the door, drive home.
Right.
You got crawfish, and their business exploded. And that's all they did was, procure and boil crawfish. And I think they had maybe 2 or 3 different flavor varieties you could pick from. But they didn't have to have a sit-down dinner in their restaurant ever again. And
Right.
they actually have since closed the physical location and just gone to a kind of a private commercial kitchen where they can do this stuff.
Yep.
And
What's the setback can be the setup. And I keep saying that even with, again, some of the tariffs. It's not a political statement, right? It's just the nature of the beast. It's the water that we're navigating. What is the setback is the setup. And so for me, I do believe that this is what I beat cancer to do. So like I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a creator, I'm a visionary. It's taken me a long time to get comfortable with saying that stuff. But man, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So whatever the setback is, let's look at it as a setup for what's to come.
I love it. So what is next for you guys as best as what you have on the drawing board right now?
Yeah, so next for us, so we talked a little bit about the play sets. We have the Rock Solid Ready bags, which we deploy to families when they're diagnosed so that the families don't have to split up. It's got toiletries and it's got a whole bunch of stuff to keep the families together. This year, we're doing about 5,100 of those bags throughout the country. Our BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious goal in the U.S. is 16,000 bags. So Rock Solid Foundation next year in April or May, we'll pack 16,000 bags in one day. and accomplish the U.S. goal. Globally, we're looking at building play structures all throughout the world, and that's 400,000. So I do believe that Rock Solid Foundation will love and serve 400,000 families. We're looking at Canada, Mexico, Ecuador, Guatemala. We've started establishing some global partners, some global distribution. So Rock Solid Foundation will continue to love and serve every child, or will one day love and serve every child fighting cancer. And I think you got to have big vision. Big vision creates big gaps. And so who fills in the gaps? It's your team that you got to trust, and you got to trust the process.
Love it. Love it. Well, Eric, this has been amazing. And again, congratulations on all you've been able to accomplish, and what a powerful and meaningful mission you're on. And Godspeed for getting all that done. Tell the folks the best way to get a hold of you if they have a need, or they know someone who is likewise in need.
Yeah, so you can find me. Best way to reach me is at rocksolidfoundation.org. Rock is spelled R-O-C, the K fell off. So it's rocksolidfoundation.org. You can find us on YouTube, any of the social media channels. And if you want to follow me, it's you can go find me, Eric D. Newman, on any of the social platforms. But yeah, it's been an honor to be here, man. I love good conversation. And anytime we can talk leadership and just helping someone else, it's very, very important to me. So thank you for having me.
Very good. Well, again, thank you so much. And what a blessing to meet you and know this kind of work that you're doing. What a great. And I didn't say it earlier. This is a little bit of a digression here, but I think I've built 3 of those play sets in my life. And, I'm impressed by the 1 hour timeline on it. I think my first one was 3 days.
So it does. So it is ranked one of the top 5 worst things for a dad to do. And it usually takes a couple cases of beer, some uncles and some neighbors, and they regret and are mad every single moment. So it is. It's pretty funny. Like, you're not, Doug, you're not alone, my friend. Yeah. I hear that a lot. So that's really funny.
Any dad that's ever tried doing it, you know exactly. And whether it could be as benign as setting up a swing set in the backyard, those aren't easy either in most cases. But anyway, not to digress, but again, thanks, and really appreciate you sitting in, Eric.
Awesome, Doug. Thank you so much.
Well, folks, I do want to remind you, number one, we'll have all those links in the show notes so you can get a hold of Eric easily. And also, I want to point you to our video version of this show over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there. And if you'd like to get a hold of me for any of your leadership needs, I'm simply at dougthorpe.com. That's Thorpe with an E on the end. And I've got a couple of ways you can get a hold of me there, and some other resources. My own blog archive is there as well. But with that, I think we're about done, and we're going to sign off, say goodbye. Go out there and make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.